Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, dear listeners from all around the world. This is Toby Usnik on the Caring Economy. Welcome back. Today, I'm thrilled to have my friend and colleague Karin Raguin, who is the Vice President for Talent and Special Products at LVMH. LVMH, most of you will know, is in fact the global luxury good leader with $63 billion in revenue in 2019. They have a stable of brands which are the envy of the world, 70 or more brands, which Karin and I will talk about today, from wines, fashion, beauty, jewelry, even media. So I would like to say bienvenue, my friend Karin Raguin. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Thank you for having me.
I'm grateful to have you here. Karin, I know that our listeners all have been touched by your brands, whether they know it or not. And in today's conversation, we'll discuss some of those maisons or those brands that you have at LVMH. But could you give us sort of a overline sort of description of LVMH, sort of a 30,000 foot perspective on the brand or the conglomerate and its maison or its brands?
Alors, LVMH is a luxury leader and it's present in about 65 countries right now. We have more than 160,000 employees worldwide. I think right now we have 175 nationalities within the group, majority of women. I'm describing the group from an HR standpoint because this is my path, and I'm really passionate about people. And by the way, our motto is people make the difference. Yeah. But yes, so it was founded in 1987, and I think what's interesting about LVMH is that, as you mentioned, most of the people know some of the brands, but what people don't know is that we have 75 maisons right now. Mm-hmm. And the latest maison that was founded is Fenty with Rihanna, and which is an incredible human story and very much anchored in diversity and inclusion. And the oldest one is in wine and spirit, and it's a French one. So and it was 7 centuries ago. So what's amazing within LVMH is you have these 75 maisons. All of them have a very specific heritage, mm-hmm. Culture, roots, and we are all in the same group. So our role, especially in HR, is really to build bridges and build platform, so we can have this, learning platform, communities internally to exchange and to share practice and to be stronger. And by the way, over the past months, especially in the midst of the multiple crises, the health crisis, the social unrest, the racial unrest, and we really have all felt that we were part of a large group and of one group. Mm-hmm. And we have been helping and supporting each other a lot.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to come back to that concept of building bridges, Karin, and in particular, the bridge between a corporate function and then the stable of other maisons. But before that, can you maybe go through a sampling list with me of some of the wine and liquor brands, the fashion brands, the beauty, the jewelry, and so forth. I know, for example, Dom Perignon and Hennessy, Chateau d'Yquem for the wine. Just to give our listeners a sampling of the great brands.
Alors, you mean to mention the different brands?
Yes, across the categories, so fashion.
Okay, so basically in the US, everybody knows Louis Vuitton, Dior, Hennessy. Yep. What people don't know is that Sephora is part of LVMH. Everybody knows Sephora, but not everybody knows this is part of the group. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of fashion, you will find brands such as Kenzo, Loewe, Givenchy,
Laura Piano.
Loro Piana, absolutely. And same for perfume and cosmetic.
Mm-hmm.
And where you have, Christian Dior. I mean, all these brands are reflected in the beauty industry as well. Then you have watches and jewelry, yes, with brands such as Tag Heuer, Hublot, and also, as you mentioned, we do have another sector which is more a media, but you have yacht mm-hmm. as well. And hospitality with Belmont.
Yes.
Voilà, which was acquired a few time ago. Yeah. And in terms of wine and spirits, the magical brands such as Moët & Chandon, mm-hmm. Veuve Clicquot, mm-hmm. Belvedere. And what is great about the US, I mean, once again, the US is the number one market, the number one single market for LVMH. Mm-hmm. And in the US, we have the chance to have both regional head office, but also some of our brands which have headquarters in the US. And the brands which have headquarters are Marc Jacobs, Benefit, and it's really, I think it's really fascinating to have some very American brand alongside with very French or very Italian brand. If you take Loro Piana or Bulgari, they are very, very Italian. So that's where we are.
We're with Karin Raguin, who is the Vice President of Talent and Special Projects at LVMH. My mother she passed away many years ago, but my mom, Sally, she loved her Guerlain, and that was her perfume. She wore her whole life. So from my earliest memories, it was a label, a maison that was representing our house here in the States.
Sorry, I did not mention Guerlain. Oh, please, to all my Guerlain colleagues to forgive me. But this is I love this story. Because actually, first of all, most of the brands are, quite old in a way that they are around for more than 1 or 2 centuries, and second, it's our brands are really powerful, mm-hmm. and this power also gives us an additional responsibility when it comes to CSR, which is one of the topic of the podcast. But I think when you have the power of the image, we need to use this power in a meaningful way.
Yes, that is the responsibility that comes with stewarding a great brand. It's one of them. Why don't we jump right into that? And maybe you want to give some examples of how philosophically that works at LVMH, or how tactically that might work with stewarding a brand and doing it in as responsible a manner as possible.
I'm not sure I get your question.
So you're stewarding a great brand, whether it's Dior, Givenchy, Chateau d'Yquem. We would say in the States, where the rubber meets the road. How does leading that brand also, how do you do it in a responsible way? How do you bring, for example, diversity and inclusion to a 200-plus-year-old brand that has been predominantly Western European throughout its life?
Okay, yes, of course, that's a great question. Before joining LVMH 13 years ago, I was a social worker, then a social entrepreneur. And I was providing support to people with disability. Mm-hmm. And LVMH was my client. And so when I entered LVMH, I really asked myself, your question. Mm-hmm. I mean, what does that mean, to enter this large company? What is a CSR role within this company? Is it just about communication, or am I going to really be able to have an impact and to have a social impact? Mm-hmm. And the reason why I joined, and the reason why I'm still here, is because it's totally compatible, actually. And I think in terms of CSR action or D&I, The group has been accelerating the effort. Alors, some of the action are at group level, some of the action are at maison level. But what is important is that the group is leading CSR. The group is leading D&I, which means that first, it's a strategic topic. Second, acting responsibly, it means starting from the needs, from the most vulnerable communities. So it's very much local as well. To understand, in each countries in which we operate, and for example, for North America, in each cities where we operate, like New York, Miami, San Francisco, which are the big hubs for us. I mean, how do we support, how do we enable vulnerable communities to be successful? And this is really what is driving me. Because when you enable the most vulnerable to succeed, when they rise, the whole world is rising. And that's the most important. And that's how we do business with the right values.
Can you give us an example of maybe an initiative in the US at the brand or maison level or corporate of this?
Yes, sure. I think maybe one initiative that came out at the beginning of the pandemic is a support to the health communities, which meant and still means actually, because we are still doing it, that brands such as Louis Vuitton have shifted their operation so they can, manufacture, produce, and donate masks. And other supply. Same for the Woodinville manufacturer in Washington, who has been producing hand sanitizer. So part of it was product. Part of it was also to support the health community by multiple donations. But that has been, of course, huge priorities over the months. And I think, the way the group and the brands have been doing it is, first of all, they have been very local, once again. And some company even ask their employee to recommend some organization, some nonprofit where they can donate. So I think this is extremely important to be relevant, to be very local, and to start with the employee. Yes. And second, they have prioritized to the organization where they have long-term partnership. So that's very important as well, to be agile enough to react during the crisis, but also to be able to frame, a long-term CSR perspective that you can follow up. And yes, sure. Go ahead. No, sure.
No, thank you. You remind me when I was researching for today's interview, I also did recall when the pandemic still just was beginning, LVMH really pivoted quickly to start with the perfume business to make sanitizers. And I was amazed to see that there was 12 tons of sanitizers made and donated to the hospitals and caregivers in Paris alone. So does that continue now, or do you know, are you starting to get back to business in the traditional?
It continues. Louis Vuitton just announced last week that they were, still manufacturing and donating over 100,000 masks to different local organizations in needs. That continue. I mean, if you take Hennessy with unfinished business, which is about supporting the small businesses, and out of them, a majority of minorities own businesses, it's a long-term action. I mean, it started, I think it started in July, but it's still on.
So that's fascinating. So Hennessy is focusing on the job preservation or creation in response to COVID. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, the small businesses and, our partner for our wine and spirit brand. So that's, I mean, once again, to your point, I think each brand define its own CSR roadmap based on its DNA. And what the brand can bring and what the brand ecosystem of suppliers, clients, employees. And that's very important as well. And you know, the way, so for North America, the way we are running the CSR action, we always ensure that there is a connection between the employee and the community we serve. So it's not only about, you know, giving money or giving time. It's really about, you know, having this genuine connection. And that's super important because we really want it to be transformative. When you connect with communities, when you get to know people, when you have this human-to-human discussion, it is transforming both ways. Both groups.
Yes.
And it's also a way to, you know, first of all, be more aware about our own bias, being more aware about, you know, what's going on in the country, in the city where we are operating, and to be part of, you know, to be part of the change and to really be sure that we add value in a relevant way.
Yes. Well, there are two things I really like about that in particular. One is it sounds to me like you're in the relationship business, right? Like you're not going to just write a check and leave. You're in it for the long term, across time with your stakeholders.
That's exactly, yes, that's exactly what we are. And that's why, you know, a lot of action are involving self-esteem, you know, working on self-esteem and self-confidence. For example, last Friday, we had a workshop with the United Way of New York City and the Coalition for the Homeless for 15 women re-entering the workforce. Some of them were, you know, in a very delicate situation. Some of them were domestic violence survivors. And so each of our volunteers were paired with these women, and the workshop was about, you know, mock interview, resume review. But at the end of the day, it's all about self-esteem. It's all about giving back this self-esteem to these talented women because they are talented. And that's, I think that's something that, you know, in luxury, we have the legitimacy to do that. Because if you think about it, luxury, it's all about, you know, luxury is one of the objectives, one of the raison d'etre of luxury is to give people, to make people feel good about themselves. So that's something we absolutely want to give back. And also, I think the connection with our talent. We have incredible talent internally. So I think it's also a way to, you know, share expertise, share energy, and to strive all together. But the human piece is super important in CSR. And most importantly, we don't want to externalize the CSR, you know, like to, say, this is, you know, the job of the nonprofit or the job of, you know, public institution to do it. We want to be part of the solution, and our employee want to be part of the solution. And what I can tell you, and I've been working in CSR for 20 years, but what's changing right now is that everyone is passionate about it. And in the midst of the crisis where, you know, everyone was facing a very challenging time, everyone wanted to help as well.
Yes.
So I think, you know, the level of awareness or, you know, solidarity, whatever we call it, but this level, you know, this feeling that we are all interconnected and we have to support each other, I feel it's very strong right now. And I mean, it's fantastic from, you know, a corporation perspective because we can really be part of the change, and I've never seen so much focus on CSR right now.
Yes, I think that is my observation as well. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we're with Karin Raguin, who is the Vice President of Talent and Special Projects at LVMH, the $63 billion luxury good leader. Karin, the second point about your CSR that you shared that I really like is that at the brand level, the Maison level, it's an expression of their DNA, which is what I've written about in the Caring Economy. There's so much CSR that's done that's just bolted on or not necessarily an expression of DNA. I've written about, for example, Ford doing breast cancer, which is noble, but it doesn't really get to the DNA of an auto manufacturer. But what you just shared with NSE and working at the local level with small businesses is spot on. It's a great example. I want to ask about you. We always want to hear from our really accomplished leaders in business, how they made their professional journey, how they got where they are now. And so if you could give us a quick journey of your career and sort of the pivots that you've made. You started as a social worker, which is fascinating. Can you give us a little overview of your life and why you're now so involved with CSR at LVMH?
With pleasure. First of all, I had the feeling that I'm not accomplished at all. And actually, especially over the past months, I really feel that I have so much to learn. Yeah. And the past months for me have been incredible because, living in the crisis in a foreign country, I've been in the US for 1.5 years. I've been listening deeply. I've been listening very deeply. I've been, trying to understand what the situation is, what the social and the racial unrest mean. I never feel, first of all, I see the world differently. And second, I really feel that I have so much to learn. And it's a very particular time for me. It's really a learning time. It's a time where I feel, very vulnerable. And I don't feel like, I used to present myself saying, I have an expertise in D&I and an expertise in HR, and I don't feel that I have any expertise because everything is changing. And I feel that, sometimes I might have missed a lot of, different experiences that now I see. So voilà. So this being said, I've been in the HR function for 25 years. And for me, my passion and my job has always been to enable people to shape their own destiny. That's what I'm really passionate about. Beautiful. And I've done it in the social sector. And then I created a social startup for disabled people to connect with the marketplace. And within LVMH, I've started in CSR. And then I moved to more traditional HR position. I've worked a lot on developing future leaders. I've been creating a couple of leadership programs, especially for women, which is another topic we can talk about. I'm a gender equality advocate for a long time. And 3 years ago, I moved at Christian Dior, where I was leading talent management worldwide. And since 1.5 years, I'm here in North America, based in New York, part of the regional HR team, and I oversee talent management and CSR. So which I'm really passionate about because it's all about providing support and guidance to the brands. And once again, we have we have a large diversity of brands and people. And what keeps me engaged in my role is to have the feeling that career is much more than a career. I think career can really be a way for people to be completely empowered. And I really see my role as, not designing career paths, but really equipping people, equipping talent, equipping HR, business leader. So we can make a choice. And empowerment is really important for me, and making sure that we are giving the same opportunity. We are giving as much opportunity. Yes. To all talents. And then it's up to the person to decide to take on these opportunities or not.
That's consistent with this concept of late with George Floyd's murder and social justice about sharing one's privilege. And like you, I do think of how we're living our lives. A career is much more than a vocation or a job. I also suspect for you, Karin, as for me, retirement's not something I even contemplate. I think that we will keep on going, doing what we're doing in the ways we're doing it until we can no longer do it.
It's more, voila, we have more than job. We have a purpose,
We
but
have purpose.
really,
Yeah, absolutely.
we have a purpose.
So tell
And,
me.
and you know, all my energy is coming from the people, from the connection with the people, even in virtual. I think we can be very socially connected virtually. And by the way, actually, we have, you know, something amazing happened during the pandemic, is that we have been working so much regionally, like with our colleagues in Canada, between the West Coast and the East Coast, where traditionally we were not so connected. So yes, I mean, connection with people is super important.
Yes, and I think the technology and the digital literacy that's increased is actually sharing more power in a sense, or giving more voices a place at the table than maybe would have been in the past. So let me ask you a question about leadership, which to me is the key to all of the successful CSR or any organization. I wonder in your career, when you seek out leaders to recruit or retain or to develop, what's changed in leadership, recruitment, retention, development, or conversely, what has not? Is it pretty much the same thing you've always been looking for? Is it a gut check? Is it a, oh, they know social media kind of thing? Or can you opine a little bit about trends in leadership development?
I love your question, because that's, I mean, right now, I think this is really a time for compassionate leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, what is compassionate leadership? Yeah. You know, how do we define it? How do we make it tangible? And I tend to think that it's a, you know, it's a combination of being emotionally and rationally connected to people. Mm-hmm. And but this compassionate leadership is super important because I believe that, you know, we are in a crisis mode, and sadly, I think that we will be more and more in a crisis mode. Mm-hmm. For many reasons. You know, can be the economy, but can be, you know, the climate change. And so, I mean, if we want to do something good and, you know, be a real leader and lead teams in that time where, you know, we don't know what will be next month, I think we need leaders who are truly connected and who have this level of compassion. Mm-hmm. And this can be learned. I don't think this is innate, you know, and I always think that, you know, potential and leadership can be developed. Mm-hmm. Especially, I think, reflecting on ourselves and debriefing with the team. I really believe in debriefing. I think, you know, after a crisis, debriefing.
Debriefing?
Well, debriefing. You know, after any crisis, mm-hmm. We should be debriefing. Yep. And sometimes that's a step that we forget because we want to, you know, we're out of the crisis, so we are, you know, coming back to the new normal. And I think this is where we can learn to be more connected to people's emotion and to our own emotion, is to debrief and to learn.
And it also opens up your talent pool, right? If you're looking for empathetic leadership, that doesn't necessarily require that you look only in a pool of people who are from the fashion world or retail. You yourself came from social work, right? So,
absolutely. I mean, traditionally, we always recruited people from different sectors. Mm-hmm. Actually, I think that right now, what we need is people who, first of all, are connected to the local market. Mm-hmm. So who know, I mean, for retail and sales, for example, people who know our clients, and our clients are more and more local, and they will be more and more local. So people who have really this connection, this cultural connection, yes. And then people who have the ability to learn and to be super flexible. What we have witnessed over the past months is that the teams have changed, the jobs have completely changed. It has, I mean, in a way, it has been a fantastic learning opportunity. I mean, the skills that people have gained are huge. I mean, they have done things that they could not imagine they would have done last year. So I think it's a great illustration as well about, the talent of our team.
Yes.
So yes, to your point, we don't need, I mean, that's very important. We are not seeking only for people who have this luxury experience. I think what is really important is to have a curiosity for luxury, the curiosity, because for sure, to understand and how our brands are mostly European, can operate and be successful in the US market. You need to know the US market, but also to have the curiosity to understand the historic European roots of the brand, of the DNA. Yes. So it's really this agility that is true today, that was true before the crisis. So to your point, that remains true.
Constant. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we're with Karin Raguin, who is the Vice President of Talent and Special Projects at luxury conglomerate LVMH. You had anticipated my second question on leadership, Karin, because I was going to ask you, can it be learned, or is one born with it? And I'm with you. I think that it can be brought out or cultivated in folks. And so I'm glad to hear that. Here on the Caring Economy, we tend to both engage with leaders, C-suite executives in major global brands. They're making decisions real time about business. And CSR, but we also have a lot of younger listeners. So I'm really grateful that you shared with us, Karin, this concept of, be curious and seek out knowledge about these different issues and trends, because that's going to be highly desirable to a recruiter such as yourself or a big brand at LVMH. We're winding down on time. I had one last question for you. I don't know if it still exists. I know from my research you had historically at LVMH, the Journée Particulière. I guess every 2 years you open up and welcome people inside your houses or homes or maisons.
Yes.
Is that still on?
Which is a great way to be curious. And it's in every country. I mean, at least in the US, the doors were open as well.
Yeah, please describe it for our listeners on the Caring Economy. The Journée Particulière, the specific days. What is it?
Well, the specific days, it's complicated for me to speak about it because I really don't know when will be the next session. And as you can imagine, it can be challenging. But what I can tell you is what actually we are building based on this concept here in the US is to have a very immersive experience. Is to have experience about, one day with or, one job and what is behind the brand, what is behind the function. And that was the concept of the Journée Particulière, was really to open all these places and to features and to showcase the savoir-faire, the expertise, in particular for craftsmanship, and to open it to everyone. So everyone could, book a reservation and have a tour of all these emblematic. And we are really trying to work on this. And I mean, once again, more from a career perspective, but to give access to everyone to what's behind, who is behind the product.
Yes.
How does that work? How long does it take? And when you see the expertise and how long it takes to manufacture a bag and or a piece of jewelry, and you see the product very, very differently. And I mean, that's also part of the CSR, because, one of the pillars of the CSR is what we call savoir-faire, which is really about, offering training and making sure that this expertise is sustainable. And this can only be learned within the company, within the brand, not at school. So
yes,
that's very important pillar.
Yes, and it's not a digital solution, right? Craftsmanship requires human people doing things. So
Yes.
I love that
Yes.
approach for two reasons. One, it really underscores this concept of transparency, right? Like come into our homes, our maison, and see how we do it. And two, with young people, it really does have the potential to spark interest in something, such that a young person might go to a maison on one of these days and see how a watch is made or wine
Yes.
is made. And then they'll think, wow, I would like to do that, or I want to learn more. So to be able to spark interest, that curiosity in a young person, awesome.
Exactly, and it's excellence for everyone. That's very important. Okay, to be
Exactly.
we can be exclusive and be inclusive. So it's for everyone.
Amen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Karin Raguin, who is the Vice President of Talent and Special Projects at LVMH, the $63 billion global luxury good leader. Karin, thank you so much for joining us on the Caring Economy. Best of luck to you, and we hope to have you back in the coming months.
Thank you, Toby. My pleasure.